In every corner of America, there are stories of resilience, innovation, and the unwavering spirit of community. Join us as we showcase the strategies and solutions that are shaping a brighter tomorrow. This is the Community Effect, brought to you by NeighborWorks America.
Welcome back to the Community Effect. I'm Marietta Rodriguez, your host and president and CEO of NeighborWorks America. Today, we're excited to dive into a timely conversation about manufactured housing as a solution to the attainable housing crisis. Joining us are two leaders at the forefront of this innovative movement. Sarah Kackar, Director of Rural Initiatives at NeighborWorks America, and Ramsey Cohen, who supports housing solutions for nonprofits nationwide at Clayton. Together, they'll share how their partnership is transforming housing access through peer learning experiences like an inclusive zoning course designed to expand affordable housing opportunities, especially in rural areas. But before we dive into the conversation, Sarah, I'd love for you to share some background on NeighborWorks America's work in rural communities. Could you give us a snapshot of how NeighborWorks supports rural communities and what your role is as our director in rural initiatives?
Sure. Thank you, Marietta. As many of our listeners already probably know, NeighborWorks has been really active in providing capacity building support for rural America over several decades. And the national level rural work that I direct involves many different parts of assistance, whether it's through capacity building cohorts or connecting collaborations of organizations, or whether it's really working with our external partners in order to increase funding and development for the rural organizations. The real key for this initiative is to assist and support our organizations flexibly. It can take the shape of toolkits to support our organizations working with local partners, or it could be convening organizations around a specific pressing issue, or going out to secure additional financial resources that support our larger programming.
I really appreciate that. And there's so much land in the United States that is rural. And I grew up in a rural state of New Mexico. The majority of that state is rural land. So I really appreciate the perspective you both bring to this conversation. I'm curious, and I'll start with you, Ramsey, and I'll ask Sarah also to chime in on this question. What drew you to this work, particularly manufactured housing?
The first thing that drew me to it was a job, right? I started working for Clayton when I was just 20 years old. But what's kept me in it is the easy path that I have to connect the work that I do to positive impacts on families across the entire country.
When you can see those tangible results, it can be very powerful and really motivating. So I really appreciate that. What about you, Sarah? What brought you to this work?
Sure. Well, like you, Marietta, I am a child of rural community as well. Grew up in the grass seed capital of the world in rural Oregon. And I really came to first just housing as part of my education and experience in land and community development and planning. So I've worked with rural and urban communities across all the sectors. And as part of my work in housing and both urban and rural sectors, manufactured housing fits so perfectly. I think that manufactured housing really provides a range of safe and efficient housing today that meets that goal of serving all demographics and income levels better than many other types of housing out there.
Yeah. I want to ask Ramsey a question before we get too far into this conversation. We often hear or read a lot of different terminology. I want you to help define it all for us and set the stage a little bit. We hear offsite or factory built homes, modular homes, manufactured homes. Recently, I've started to hear more cross mod homes. Can you help us understand what these different terms mean and reference and how they might be utilized in different areas?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I mentioned earlier about, what drew me to this. And I talked about the feeling about the work that I get to do. But part of the really exciting thing is that we are still innovating, right? There's not a lot of innovation happening in the housing space. There's a ton happening with our organization, whether it's building homes to meet zero energy ready standards or the cross mod homes that you mentioned. So to understand all those different categories, I'm going to start from the past and work my way to the present and the future. What you had in the
Okay.
past was mobile homes. Technically speaking, mobile home is a home that was built before 1976. 1976 is a key inflection point for our industry and an important one to understand because that is when we received the HUD code. That's when the federal government stepped in and gave us a national building code. And HUD oversees and regulates our entire industry. And so each home is inspected by HUD inspectors in the facility. We have to follow and build to that code. That code is critical because it gave us the framework that allows us to move at the scale and speed that we do. Having a standardized building code is critical to us being able to achieve the kind of results that we can in a production environment. So mobile home is anything pre 1976. Manufactured home is what people more associate with our industry. Anything built after 1976 is a manufactured home. So that's a home that's built to meet that HUD code standard, really high standards in terms of energy efficiency, build quality, materials. What we've seen is that a lot of people also use the word, as you did, modular. And a modular home is distinctly different from a manufactured home in a really key, specific, and legal way. A modular home is a home that is not built to that federal HUD code. It is still built in the facility, but it is built to meet the state and local codes for wherever that home will be placed.
So let me just, I think that's a really important distinction. Both manufactured and modular homes are built in a facility versus being built on site where they will be permanently placed. Am I right there?
Yes, that's correct. So, a manufactured home and a modular home are both built in a facility. The only distinction between the two is the building codes that are used to build that home.
What about cross mod?
Yeah, so cross mods are homes that are still built to that HUD code, but are indistinguishable from a site built home. Another way to think about it is 70% of the homes built in the facility, 30% of the home is built on site because we have to build that foundation on site. We then bring the home, set it on the foundation. We then site build a porch and a garage. And a cross mod is a home that appraises against site built homes. It finances just like site built homes. Our industry worked with the GSEs, so Fannie and Freddie, to develop loan programs for these home types that enable them to have conventional financing with as little as 3% down.
That's really helpful. Thank you for walking us through that. I feel like more people are turning to manufactured homes as an attainable housing solution. From your perspective, what do you think has sparked this growing interest?
Yeah, I think, gosh, need has really sparked that interest, right? We have such an incredible housing supply gap, and it's, I think, felt most acutely on the affordable end of things, but we have just more broadly a general lack of housing to meet the demand and needs of our country. And so that sparked a lot of people to think outside the box. But then also our ability to innovate in ways that traditional home builders just simply can't helps also drive interest. I mentioned earlier that our manufactured homes or a HUD code home, those modern manufactured homes are built to meet the Department of Energy's zero energy ready home standard. Well, the reason we're so proud of that innovation is that it reduces a homeowner's utility cost by about 50% compared to a similarly sized home. So the fact that we're able to build and develop new innovative products and housing solutions that are going to help people not just be able to afford a home, but also be able to more easily afford to stay in that home is something that I think is driving a lot of interest.
I mean, 50% reduction in energy costs, that's significant. That's a huge selling factor. Sarah, from a community planning perspective, why is manufactured housing a key option, particularly for rural communities?
Sure. As Ramsey did a really great job explaining just the efficiency in its construction as well as the end product is a key selling point. But why I think it's a really great option from a community standpoint is that from the curb, we so often talk about curb appeal, it blends in seamlessly to neighborhoods, whether it's an urban, suburban, or rural community. These cross mods, you cannot tell the difference. It also provides speed and lower cost. I mean, in a Clayton plant that produces cross mods, they are producing a cross mod home from nothing to complete home in 5 days. 5 days.
It's
I mean, that's
amazing.
really quick. And then they can get it out and ship it quite quickly. Now, on the community side, are there definitely considerations there on their side? Is the site set up for water? Does the site have all the codes? Is it really infrastructure ready to accept that home, right? That is where rural areas can really shine in many ways from its infrastructure readiness as well as its code readiness. And there talk about the zoning codes. Traditionally in the rural areas, their zoning codes, their comprehensive plans have really been more tolerant and inclusive of manufactured housing than in urban suburban areas.
I know that there is a very innovative and impactful partnership that has emerged between NeighborWorks and Clayton. And I want to talk a little bit more about that partnership. Ramsey, I'll start with you. How do you think this partnership addresses barriers to making modern manufactured housing more attainable?
Today's modern manufactured home is inherently attainable. So it's really critical that we make people aware of that. We make community leaders and housing organizations and those who are focused on trying to close that supply gap, especially in the affordable, attainable space, aware of ways that we can help. The partnership has really helped that in a number of different ways. I mean, one of the things that stands out to me is the peer learning site visits that we've had. I've taken lots and lots of people on tours of our facilities. 100% of the time, they come away wildly impressed and thinking just how high quality and amazing these homes are. So seeing it happen in front of you is really, really big. But then also we let them see finished homes and walk through them, visit a crossmod home. And it helps people really understand those key product differences, that housing types and how they can fit in and serve. Because the reality is we're able to help solve housing challenges in a myriad of different price points. It's a matter of what's your local challenge? We have a solution that will work for that. It's a matter of making people aware of that. And so this partnership has really, really helped create that critical awareness that our industry and Clayton is here to help solve those problems.
I think you're absolutely right. Once someone sees something, this is a visual, tangible alternative, I think can be very powerful. Sarah, I know we've talked a little bit on the fringes regarding zoning, and I know you all have worked on some zoning ordinances, often referred to as inclusionary zoning. Tell us a little bit more about that zoning work.
Sure. So a zoning code really directs where and how much our built environment is placed in communities. So our homes are called residential uses next to commercial uses, or maybe business or downtown, as opposed to where are schools and libraries and where are our industry. So, how these uses relate to each other in space and place is what really drive a lot of how our community functions. Our network organizations today are really finding themselves on the front lines of developing their housing within these codes. So many of the network organizations are facing codes which do not currently allow manufactured housing as a permissible use in a residential area. So as Ramsey said, 1976 is a real seminal year for manufactured housing, and many codes in areas that haven't had to update or rewrite could easily be pre 1976. Zoning codes and comprehensive plans have historically placed manufactured housing and what used to be just referred to as manufactured home parks on the outskirts of communities. Rather than thinking about the types of housing in our communities and integrating new manufactured housing within one residential zone or residential area.
Sounds like there's an opportunity to do some education and awareness building. Um,
Absolutely. And our groups have been doing a great job of that. And that's something that we definitely been helping them with.
Before we move into talking about the partnership we have, Ramsey, I just want to ask you one last question. What's the one thing that you hope that people understand about manufactured housing?
The biggest thing I hope people understand is the quality that goes into every home. I've been out and talked to people and they ask questions like, well, what are these homes built with? It's like, well, what are homes built with? Like the same materials you would use in site construction. It's the exact same process. With that, I would hope they'd also understand the benefits of that HUD code and how it enables us to achieve those attainable price points and how valuable that is. And so I know that's a couple of things, but I'd hope people ultimately just understand that today's modern manufactured homes are homes.
Let's talk specifically about the collaboration between NeighborWorks America and Clayton. I'll start with Sarah and then we'll ask Ramsey to talk about this. What inspired NeighborWorks and Clayton to come together?
Sure. I think what really inspired us as we started just getting to know each other a little bit was the shared alignment in our mission. Both NeighborWorks and Clayton are really committed to providing homes for everyone. NeighborWorks really provides a learning lab of sorts. We have a group of very adept and strong organizations across the country. As many know, the network's super diverse. Getting to Ramsey's point about the pure site visits where we're bringing organizations in. Yeah, I mean, Clayton's meeting people from every different possible type, size, demographic, and situation of our network organizations and able to see that they can consider it and what the possibilities are.
Ramsey, I'll ask you the same question.
Yeah, I would echo so much what Sarah just said. I mean, first and foremost, there's such great alignment. We're both focused on increasing supply of attainable home ownership and strengthening and building resilient communities. You know, uh, NeighborWorks, Sarah is able to offer just incredible support and expertise around community development, support services. But then we're able to come in and offer scalable, cost effective housing solutions, right? We're well positioned to be able to learn from one another while also being able to help one another, optimize our efforts to serve and support underserved communities and close that attainable housing supply gap.
Uh, Sarah, can you briefly describe the elements of the partnership with Clayton?
A one really good tangible example is over 2 different years, we had a group of organizations who Clayton supported with stipends to basically have the headspace and the time and staff space to say, "We really need to dig into this." And one community decided to use their stipend and go visit every manufactured and modular housing plant of every brand and every type in their state. And they visited, I think, 10 or 15 places. And they really came out of it saying, what, if we're going to do this, here's the maker and here's the developer who we think is best for us. And another community used their stipend to really engage in very deep community building engagement work with 3 rural towns in their service area and really start to get at that perception and education piece. So that's just 2 examples of how these learning cohorts are one piece that Clayton supported.
Let's talk a little bit about some learnings or some nuggets from the partnership that were unexpected, that really turned out to be transformative.
I think one of the things that has really helped me is connecting with local leaders through the site visits and just a realization of how much we're all trying to work to achieve the same thing. It's sometimes the communities that an organization is trying to serve, they don't need the highest end home that we have. That's not going to fit for the kind of consumers that they are trying to empower with new pathways to home ownership. And so that realization that we have more in our tool belt to be able to use for problem solving was really, really big.
Yeah, I think I have 2 nuggets. One is follows on Ramsey's point. I think on our first pure site visit, and we were walking through different homes. The thing part of the site visit is we walk through different homes at different price points. So the cross mod is the highest price point at the end, but we walk through model homes starting at the very lowest price point. and keep stepping our way through different homes. And so everyone can go, oh, okay, this is what it looks like. This is how it feels. This is the difference. And it was a nugget of learning for our own network that really stood out as we walked in a home that was at the lowest price point. And someone said, no, this aesthetic, I could never sell this for the group that we're really trying to place homes for in our community. Someone walked literally right behind her. And this gentleman said, oh my gosh, this would be absolutely perfect. This is the price point we need. We don't need a Pinterest board of what the most beautiful thing is in a home, but we do need respectable, safe housing. So that's one nugget. The other nugget that really sticks in my head still, and I think it was also from the first Pure site visit we did, was an urban organization who, after we have a site visit, we walk through homes one day, we go through a plant the other day, we really all come together. And this urban organization stood up and said, we just placed factory built housing in our community. And if we can say anything to all of our network peers here, is that even if you do the pro forma and it pencils out the same, the factor of time is absolutely critical. And in our jurisdiction, we didn't have to wait 6 months for a water hookup. So we were infrastructure ready. And so we got these in the ground in, I think it was 10 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks versus 6 to 9 months. And so do not stop when you are at the pro forma and it looks the same to you.
I think that's a real power of the network and the peer convening
Yeah.
because someone's probably gone
Yep.
before you and done it and can
Yep.
share
Yep.
their experience. Um, you've talked about the different elements of this partnership. It sounds like the partnership was able to create a specialized course on inclusionary zoning. And that course is available through the NeighborWorks Training Institute. But
Absolutely.
why I know
Right.
people have raved about this course, and so
Yes.
tell us why it was such a game changer.
Let me first define inclusive zoning for you. A technical term for inclusive zoning refers to a requirement for a market rate developer to include some units in their development that qualify as affordable. So they're able to house those at certain lower income thresholds. Inclusionary zoning, though, as a term, has really grown to include the general premise that a zoning code can't restrict or prevent housing types that house lower income citizens. So, multifamily housing might be a good example, and manufactured housing. But in our discussions around manufactured housing and inclusionary zoning, we're really working to educate leaders and planners on today's manufactured housing and ultimately update those outdated zoning codes that I mentioned earlier that prohibit manufactured housing. Now, this can be done at a local level, at a zoning code, or it can be done as at the state level. So a very good recent example would be Maryland, who at the state level has prohibited any discrimination against manufactured housing in any jurisdiction's codes. So, in other words, Maryland now allows manufactured housing by right. In terms of our course, we in Clayton really wanted to develop a course that not only laid out the basics of how land development works, how those regulations work at the local level, but also include manufactured housing and how can that fit within a well-rounded zoning code. You're right, Marietta. It has been offered at one NTI or NeighborWorks Training Institute per year in person. It tends to be offered in our August ones. We're looking forward to hopefully once again bringing it back for 2025. It's always full and really well received.
That's great. That's great. As we start to wrap up, let's take a look down the road into our future. Ramsey, what excites you about the future? What innovations do you think we'll see coming up?
So much. Nailing down the one thing I'm most excited about is tough, right? Because I think in the next 5, 10 years, you're going to see such an incredible amount of innovation. Things like cross mod or building homes to that high standard of zero energy ready. I think the next things we're going to see is an evolution within the zoning space of allowing us to come in and be a part of the solution. And so I think the fact that we've got these kind of opportunities in front of us is huge. One specific one that I know will have a incredible impact on communities, urban and rural, across the entire country, would be the adoption of a single section cross mod. So we're urging FHFA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac to be able to add a single section or a smaller footprint cross mod home to their financing programs, because we know that'll help us drive the cost of those homes down even further. That's going to be, a home that still has that 30-year conventional financing, as little as 3% down, all the energy efficiencies of our homes, but it's going to be at a much, much more attainable price point. And it's going to be an option that would be perfect for new developments that do not require large footprint homes, as well as for urban infill opportunities.
Excellent. I'll ask Sarah the same question. What's coming down the pike in the next 5-10 years?
Well, I think the fact that we have people not only who are young adults now in that Gen Z, but people who are aging into retirement. So the oldest Gen Xers are now approaching retirement, who do not have to stay in the same size and same type of home for their whole life. So whether it's starting out or downsizing, that's where manufactured housing, I think, really has an edge over site built housing. I just think that choice, the independent choice and size and price point is going to become most critical here in the next 5 to 10 years for our changing demographics of our country.
Sarah and Ramsey, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights on how manufactured housing is addressing the attainable housing crisis. The NeighborWorks Clayton partnership is a powerful example of what a private-public sector collaboration can achieve together. Manufactured housing is clearly on the forefront and has potential. It's inspiring to see it applied with a focus on accessibility, quality, sustainability, and innovation. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Community Effect. Remember to check the show notes to learn more about NeighborWorks America and Clayton and their work on attainable housing. Join us next time as we continue to uncover the stories, strategies, and collaborations shaping the communities that we call home. Until then, keep believing in the power of place and the people who make it possible. This is the Community Effect.